Hello gamers, hello friends, welcome back to the Infected, and welcome to the, I want to say series finale. It's probably closer to a season finale though, of the Infected. Thank you for sticking with me on this journey to evaluate this pretty incredible game, to be honest. How incredible? We'll give it a score at the end, just as we have done, I think, with a couple of games. I know we scored at least one of them, but it is something I think is helpful for people who are looking for the answer. Should I play this game? Should I buy this game? Should I, is it worth the cost? Everybody has those questions, especially in today's economy. But, so we're going to be looking at it from a gamer's when we render that score. Now, originally we had thought that this might be an 8, a solid 8. That was the score we gave it last season. But last season, we hadn't gotten the update that we have now. And to be fair to the game, creator, call it, or whatever you want to call him, them, it's not jumping on there, he hasn't hit, or they haven't hit 1.0. That update has not happened. So anything that we rate at this point is probably subject to some change. But we can still give it an initial review, because I think at this point, they're pretty much done. There's not too much going to change too drastically between this iteration, I would think, and the 1.0 release. I think what we're looking at here, what you see is what you get, and it's what's going to be for the release. That's maybe some polish or some fine tweaks here and there. So I think it's fairly safe to give this game a more solid review this time than we had given it originally. And interestingly enough, even though we got a lot of changes that were things that the community wanted, I think now might be a really good time to discuss what kind of criteria go into reviews at Shadow Gaming here, like what we look for. So one of the big ones, especially since we're reviewing from the perspective of gamers, and a huge concern these days is how expensive is it? How much is this going to set me back out? And that's a very important question, because in today's economy, which sucks, price matters. So we are going to be looking at that in terms of how much does it cost? Is it worth the value? Now, I'll be honest with you, it's going to score pretty highly on that end, right? In fact, I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find an indie game that scores badly on that particular criteria. I'm sure they are out there. I'm sure they exist. I'm not saying they don't exist, but this is not one of them. We'll get to that later. Right? So cost comes into play. How fun is it to play? It is going to come in as well, because it could be a $2 game. If it isn't fun, it's still not going to score. Right? Score matters. How well developed is the world? Also matters. At least it matters for some people. For some games, and I would dare say this is one of them, it doesn't matter as much, because the world building isn't as important as the fun of the mechanics. So there's a couple ways you can play games, right? You can play them just for fun, right? How fun is it to just do whatever it is you're doing? And depending on how you play this game, or why you're playing it, this game could be high on that list. But again, it could also be low, and we'll get to that later. So fun, is it worth the money, right? How developed is the world, right? Accessibility, we're going to look at tutorials. How straightforward is it? Does it even need a tutorial? Does the tutorial need work, right? All that good stuff. And then we're going to look at balance. How balanced is the game overall from a gamer's perspective? Now again, I am not a programmer, so I don't know how difficult any of the issues that we're going to talk about today would be to fix. Like I said, not a programmer. But gamer's perspective, right? These are things that might matter. And it might matter a lot. Who knows, right? I guess it depends on who you are. But there we go. There we go. Now, having done 2 full seasons of this on YouTube, I'm sure you all realize, if you don't by now, have you been paying attention? However, having done 2 full seasons of this particular game at this point, we're not exactly trashing the game. We are giving it an honest review. You know what? I'm pretty much abandoning the elevator at this point. I happen to like a great deal. And, we're chockered. It feels pretty good. You know, we're not trash talking the game. We like this game. This game has been really good to us, and we have enjoyed our time playing it. I think, honestly, part of the charm is the fact that it doesn't hold your hand necessarily, but there are some things that could be done to improve the overall, not performance, but the overall core gameplay loop, I think, could be made shorter. But with that all said, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the review, because I'm sure it's going to take a bit to talk about it, and I don't want to rush it. So, price tag. I believe last time I looked at this game's price, it was somewhere around $20 or $25. That is in my own currency, that is Canadian. So I'm sure it's a little bit less in American dollars or any other kind of currency because reasons. But it's important to note that different currencies are going to have different price tags. So if you're in the States, it probably costs a little bit less. That being said, whether you're paying, I don't know, $15 US or $25 Canadian or whatever, in this price bracket, which goes up all the way up to 30, you can't go too far wrong, to be honest. It would be really hard to go sideways with that price tag. It's a solid game. It's not going to waste your time. It's also not going to break your bank, right? If you're looking for a game that is just building mild challenges here and there, this is probably a good game for that, right? And at $20, it's not too bad. Now, I haven't played the game in quite a while, but Minecraft, when I bought the game, was $10, and I got dozens of hours, many dozens of hours, probably hundreds of hours out of Minecraft before I eventually said, "I'm done with Minecraft," right? It was a solid game, right? It doesn't hold my interest anymore, but I did play it for like 10 years, semi-consistently, at a point, and that was long before my YouTube days. But at that price tag, it was a solid deal. That being said, this is one of those games that it can be a bit of a grind. It can be. We won't sugarcoat that. But it can also be worth your time, even though it is a grind. And if you're just looking to build, there is a toggle option where stuff is free and build to your heart's content. And that's good. For a game like this, that's kind of what you want, to be honest. You want a game where you can just come in and build. There's not too many problems with that. You can turn raids off. You will still get, I believe, the occasional scout party, but you can turn raids off. So, I think I grabbed the wrong thing. I think I need glass. And that's important, right? Because if you just want to build, you don't want to have raids. Raids will make it annoying. And nobody asked for annoying. So, on that note, they kind of nailed that. It's toggleable if you want to have raids. If you don't want, don't have them. It's that easy. It's that simple. So on that note, I would say he nailed it, right? Price tag, whether you're looking to build or you're looking for something that's going to occupy your time, either because it's grinding or whatever, it's going to occupy your time. It's going to be worth the $20 price tag. And I would say probably a good 10, maybe 9.5. We'll go 9.5 out of 10. So, what about the second factor, right? How fun is it? Actually, why don't we skip that one till the end? How reasonably accessible. Honestly, it's kind of bare bones. And to be honest, some of the tutorial quests could use a bit of a tweak. I had an iron spear before I completed the build a spear part of the quest done, because it only counts wooden spears. It doesn't count bone spears. It doesn't count iron spears. It only counts wooden spears. It's a little annoying. Not unheard of, but it's a little annoying. It could use some work, simply in the forms of, and remember, I have several hundred hours in this game. Several hundred. Possibly over the 4-digit mark. I don't remember. I don't think it's quite that high. Could look, though. It says I have 325, but I'm pretty certain at some point or another it wasn't tracking it. Because I'm almost positive I've put more in than that. Wouldn't be the first time something like that's happened. And there we go. And then we need like a little 4-peak roof. No, that is not the piece we want. As far as accessibility goes, the tutorial finishing touches could use some polish, but I don't know. It's also not in the worst state ever. Fair enough. I want to give it a 7 out of 10 for accessibility. Not just based on an arbitrary number, though. It does have several features. You can turn off lightning, which is phenomenal for people with seizures, like myself. You can turn on and off... Sorry, I don't actually know if you can turn off the... There's a good deal of accessibility that does work. There are some things that just aren't explained, really. So, I don't know. We'll give it a 7. 7 feels right. There's some things that could... There's nothing that really tells you how to navigate the menus. So we'll give it a 7 out of 10. Let's look at the story, because the story is going to be all over the place, and is probably going to be one of the things that actually hurts the most in this particular case. So, you have a storyline. He just introduced the story elements. But, so this is your story. You start with this, right? This will point you to the first lore note that you don't start with, right? But there's nothing that points you to the journal or even tells you how to access the journal, right? And it is clunky to get to, because it's not even like you have a hotkey that goes to different tabs on that journal, right? It's one button that if you know what you're looking for, you'll probably be able to navigate it easy enough. But again, I have 300 hours in this game. And also, to be fair, unless I am greatly mistaken, there was a point in time where it actually told you how to access that kind of stuff. Right now, you're just sort of fiddling with buttons and hoping you get the right one, which is not really the way to play a game. That's not what you want when you're trying to learn a new game, especially in today's setting where time is at a premium. You know, I'm not going to lie, right? Now more so than ever, people just don't have a ton of time, right? People are too busy working to put food on the table or whatever. We're almost playing survival games in real life, and now with our survival game, we gotta figure out the survival of the survival game just to play the game. That doesn't sound as good as I wanted it to, but it is the truth. Nobody's got time for that, right? And most people are going to try and fiddle with it. They're going to spend 10 minutes, right? If the game is too clunky, nobody's going to play it. And it's straight up. Ain't nobody got time to mess around, right? Exactly what I'm talking about if you're a gamer, right? Nobody wants to spend 3 hours fiddling with the controls, trying to figure out how to access the menus and do all this other stuff. So, I personally would love to give it a better score, but if we're being fair to every game we'll wind up reviewing on this channel, I can't do it. I can't give that kind of mercy. Now, I will say that the developer does listen to his audience in terms of this is what we want, which is fine, but there's some core game that's missing. It's not there, right? And would truly need to, it would need to come up a step or two in order to rate higher. In terms of accessibility, 6 feels about right. It isn't the rating we want to give, but it is the rating we can give. And a 6 might be stretching it a bit. Let's move on. So then you have world building. So here's where I'm stuck. Now, I like a fleshed out world. I don't necessarily like the world to be too fleshed out. And bear with me because I'll explain what I mean by that. But I also don't truly want a game that necessarily presumes that I have certain knowledge about the development or the game, right? I do love the notes. I love going to get the notes. It is not enough. This doesn't flesh out the world, right? You have Vambies, and they were apparently experiments. There's nothing else to that, right? I mean, arguably, right, when you're looking at a world and you're like, man, this is a really well-developed world, you're not going to get that here. That's just not something that's going to pop out at you and go, hey, pick me. I would love to pretend that was the case, but it isn't. My goodness, we're chocolate. So heavy. I'm sure we're dying at this point. How dramatic our character is being. Alright, we're just gonna go ahead and this is an actual code, or at least it's so I suppose you could say that getting into this game is easy, but there's no meat and potatoes to it. Straight up. The 12 notes that you're asked to go find are not enough. They just aren't. And it doesn't really explain much about anything, right? I don't punish a game for not having cutscenes, but cutscenes would probably help, to be honest. But just anything to explain how you even got here, because that's not exactly clear. Really, anything to explain how you got here would be nice. Alright, now we just need clay. Anything that would explain anything about the inhabitants of the island, the original ones, before they got, I'm not even sure what the proper term would be for this, but vamped. There's a lot of unspoken stuff, and that's not good world building. There should be something that would point to most of the answers that you would want answered in lore. Like, there should be something in the world for that, and there really isn't at all. I just think that we're going to go to all the trouble of building this elaborate world where stuff has gone wrong. Maybe we should know what was right, because we are talking alternate universe, at the very least. Nothing is guaranteed to be the same, right? And just little hints, right, about some things would be awesome, I think. But that's what it is. So let's talk core gameplay loop. This is the one that, this is where a lot of the complaints are going to be. Oh, and I guess we should assign it a number. World building, unfortunately, is going to be a generous 5. Just scraping the surface or the bottom of the 5. World building is not really this game's strong suit. I really wanted to be able to give this game more than that. That's why I was hoping to be able to give it a slightly higher rating. Last season, and to be honest, guys, it's not there. It's just not, and we have to be honest with ourselves, right? So, story-wise, it's a generous 5. Now let's talk about the fun. We've had a lot of fun on this game. We have. Ups and downs. Gameplay may be somewhat minimalistic, but the fun is there, if it's your type of game. And right now, unchanged, if nothing changes moving forward, or if there's only minimal changes moving forward, if you like a grind-heavy slog, you will love this game. If you like a game where the focus seems to be building, you will love this game. There's not too much on the more meaty end to explore, so if you're an all-about-the-world kind of person, or this is not going to make you happy. At least not really. There might be some ways this tickles you a bit, but on the average, on the whole, it is not going to scratch that itch for a lot of people that require a more involved storyline. That's just the way it is, straight up true. But at that point, for a person who requires a story to follow, this is just going to irritate them, because there's not much in the way of story. We've already gone into that. So I would say that this game is fun enough to give it a fairly high rating. I would give this, honestly, about an 8 or 9 most of the time. It is frustrating, but it is rewarding when you do finally make it past whatever the hell it was that was pissing you off. It feels good. But there is more to a game than that, and I understand that, and I'm not going to say that there is so much more to a game than just, can I beat this area that's pissing me off? Some people are going to love that, some people are going to hate that, but it is satisfying. I will give it that, and I would give this an 8-ish, right? However, there's another part that we have to evaluate, and that, unfortunately, what is this? Well, this is the tech pages. Now, these are not the problem. These are fine. 10 out of 10, this works. These work. What doesn't work is the trader techs. Let me explain. We bought, I think it was Water Wheel, which we bought last season. Right? We actually have a current example to show you, or if you want that explanation, go ahead and watch some of the other videos from last season. We spent a large portion of time, however, last season chasing the elusive Water Wheel, which was fine because it was really the last tech that we absolutely needed. And we had a way last season, to make money. We bought the advanced mixer, we made cement, we sold it to the trader. And at the time, it was the best craftable thing to sell. They have changed that. They have kneecapped the sale price of cement rather dramatically, I might add. And they have included quests. I can't even look at the ones that we've done. However, the quests don't make up for the kneecapped cement price. I passed along my concerns to the developer. As a gamer, this isn't worth it, right? I don't have 50 hours to devote to making money in this game. If I want to do that, I'll go work. You know what I mean? There's no reason that coins should be that hard to come by in this game. Now, to the developer's credit, he has included up the drop rate of coins on the infected, which is fine, but that would only be fine if coins were a guaranteed thing on the enemies, right? Enemies are dangerous. They hurt. And even entertaining the idea of going into a POI at some stages of the game is risky. Now, this is a survival game. There should be a definitive reason that your character would open themselves up to that level of harm in order to go and get these things. So, from a realism point of view, if you were to drop me into this setting where there is only 2 traders, I'm not going to lie to you, I'd body the trader, steal their techs, and call it a day. Straight up. In no world would I be compelled to go through the ludicrous process of these traders and their, frankly, lackluster rewards in a survival situation. Because here's the thing. The only way I could possibly picture this working is that these traders have like a binder or some shit like that with all the techs you can buy, right? I would straight up body them and steal the binder. Either that, or I would sneak into their outpost after dark, chloroform them, and then I would steal it. But either way, I'm stealing that binder. There is no fucking way. I am trying to make 2,500 coins for the water wheel. And I'm sorry, the tech for electrical and mechanical parts is straight up out of reach. There's literally no point to even having it in the game at this point. People asked for it, and I'll tell you why they asked for it. For those of you that weren't there during the period in question, the developer had mechanical and electrical parts in the game at a point. They were already there, and he took them out. And a choice that not everyone appreciated, I'm sure. I understand why he wanted it. He didn't want the game to be too easy. Fine. Now they're back in the game. But the way he's implemented it is almost like a fuck you to the players. Pardon my French. Because now you have to grind 25,000, not 100, 25,000 coins. Let that sink in for a second. 25,000 coins. We got to 2,500 and said piss on the rest of the tech. Because it just, I'm going to be honest with you, looking at that tech page, like the tech section, and looking at that lonely tech that's worth 2,500, and then looking at the 5 entries of 1,000 below that, nah, hell nah. I'm done. No. I got my one tech. Fuck your advanced mixers and shit. Not even gonna lie. Straight up. Piss on that. Why would I want to spend 2,500 on an arguably ultimate tech? 1,500 was hard enough to get, which is what we paid last season. 1,500 was hard enough to collect, and honestly, it's almost harder now because we don't have anything of value that we could sell, right? It still takes us 3 or 4 in-game days to make, at previous rates, to make the cement necessary, and that's with an advanced mixture, not a basic one. Now it's worth less than a third of what it was worth, and we still have to go through the rigmarole of gathering all this other stuff. Quests are not worth it, reward-wise. They just aren't. Let's not pretend that we're mincing words. They are not worth the trouble. You can call it what you want, but... Oop, shoot. Never mind. We're going to need to add water to that. They are not worth the trouble that you go through to complete those quests for the price that you're getting. And let's talk about the price disparity. There is not enough money going around for the traders to be demanding $25,000 for anything. There's just not. There is you and the 2 traders on the map. And Mike don't go shopping. Mike too busy working hard. So where do they get the impression that there is anything even remotely resembling the amount of money it would take to justify the prices they're charging, or the lack of payment that they're offering? Five large rations is 1 1/4 full points to health, to stamina, to thirst, and to sun resistance. That is a 4, in essence, for every 4, if you're eating 4 of the rations, you are getting 1 point across the board. That is a stat point per ration. Why would I give that to you for anything less than my firstborn? And why in the hell would I give you 10 of them for only 100 coins? Really? When you look at what they do, like, the thing is, the patch that redid the reward system for the quests, tweaked it so I think you get 3 times market value on items. 9 coins. They are offering you 9 coins for a large ration. Really? 9 coins. You want to offer me 9 coins? Yes. Buy it. That's a stat point in my pocket, basically. Why would I? No. You want to offer me a couple 100 coins? We might talk. You want 10 of them? Go fuck yourself. I'm just saying. Right? You have to consider what yes. And we're getting this going. You have to, when you're pricing these things, you have to look at it from a gamer's perspective, right? What is this actually giving the player? And when you look at it from that, it's a stat point. How valuable is a stat point, right? Okay. Not sure where the rest of his buddies would have gone, but whatever. Right. We've talked at length about the lack of rewards in the quest system. It's one of the reasons that we're not doing them right now. If they were worth anything, which they aren't, but if they were, we'd probably be doing them. So the fact that we're not is an indicator, right? So, is the game fun? Yes and no. For me, it's fun, but I'm going to be honest with you. There is no playthrough that I'm ever going to do where, see, craft a weapon. Why? I already made an iron spear. There is no world where I am ever going to achieve the legendarily long grind status of somebody who has acquired every tech in the game. That is not going to happen. I had that at one point before all the changes were made. I can no longer do that because there is no way in hell I am buying a $25,000 perk and a $2,500 tech. That's not going to happen. And the fact that he introduced the one tech, or the one perk, as a $25,000 price tag is a giant fuck you to the community. They weren't even asking him for something he hadn't put in already. They were asking him for something that he took out, and they were trying to very politely tell him that we want it back. It was good. It didn't need to be removed. It sounds to me like people enjoyed the game when it was in there. For good reason. It makes the game a bit easier, a bit more tenable. If you look at our current playthrough, we're having fun, but we're not having that much fun. There is nothing that would convince me to do a 100% tech and perk run. Absolutely nothing. Like, nothing you can do to make me do that. So, while it's fun and enjoyable, it is not that fun. This is literally a game that you would play on a long-term basis, put an hour there, once every few weeks or whatever of real time. You make a run to the trader to sell all your excess crap. But you're not playing it to win, you're just playing it to exist within the game world. That's the only way that you would actually wind up getting those techs. And that's what I feel that's wrong. I feel that is a waste. It's a waste of your time and the player's time, honestly, if nobody can attain the things that you put in the game. And if you're wasting time, that's just rude. Because ain't nobody got time to waste. So would I say it's fun? Yes, I would say that's a solid 8 or 9. But fun is the one scale where you and I are probably going. Overall, it's probably, unfortunately, like a 7 or 7.5 at most. And that's sad because last time we reviewed the game, before the major update, it was an easy 8, probably a solid 9, and a potential 9, right? And I think it's very sad that the game has fallen like that, because this is a solid game. It always has been. But it's not. It's taken a step back. It's not the game that we would need it to be as gamers, and that's super unfortunate. Super unfortunate that it has to go that way. However, I should point out that it is not an unfun game by any means. And if you enjoy a little bit grindier games that, you know, are a bit more minimalistic, raw around the edges, you'd probably still like this game. And I wouldn't deign to tell you not to play it. Even if it's not your favorite game or best game in the world, at $20, it would be worth picking up. You're going to spend enough time that it will be worth your $20. As long as you play it through the end. Now, the end might be wherever you deign that to be. However, it's still the end of a fashion. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. So would I recommend this game? Yes. Despite everything that's just been said, I would absolutely recommend this game. I think that the game absolutely holds, right? I don't think that there's anything wrong with the game, per se. I think that this game, it has its place. Whether that place is a good place or not, I think that's up to the individual person, player, to decide. I don't think that any of us can pass too harsh a judgment, right? A rating at the end of the day is just a rating. There. Nice and clean here. No. Ultimately, I think this game suffers most from the fact that it's unfortunately taken so long to develop. And that is not a Pocket developer. This game was released in 2021 for early access, which is not the worst. But unlike some games that, you know, deliberately poked for that nostalgia time, right? They went for it, bit into it hard, and said, "Nah, this is where we belong." That is not this, and unfortunately, it shows. I don't know what else to say about that. This game went for really good graphics, and I believe this is a Unity game, which is fine. And for the time, it was excellent. Graphics were impressive, everything was smooth, but we are now in a different age. And 5 years later, this game hasn't really aged well in that respect. And it's truly unfortunate, because this was a game that had a ton of potential. Ton of it. And I think that, you know, somewhere along the way, choices were made, which is fine. Everybody has to make the choices when you're developing a game. But certain choices were made that maybe did not lend itself well to long-term development. This game, having been developed for 5 years by a single person, is phenomenal for a single man working on it, and props to the developer. But has it aged well in those 5 years it took to develop? I would say not. Hasn't developed well, or it hasn't aged well. And in today's game market, in order to, you know, be competitive, you kind of need more than bare bones can offer. And I hate that I have to say that, but it's true. Overall, I would recommend the game. I think it's worth taking for a spin, even if you're only looking at it through nostalgia for those purposes. I would say it's still worth it. But I would also say temper your expectations, because this is not a AAA title, and it was never going to be a AAA title. But it is a good game, it's a solid game, and it is proof of concept that one person can make a game that many other people want to play. And when it comes to that, we will be playing games, of course, on the channel that will exemplify that. Right? So, while this is the final episode for The Infected, this is not the final chapter for the channel. We will absolutely be doing other things. That's right. Look at that, it's almost like a face, isn't it? I didn't even realize. I've never looked at it like that. What it looks like with those open. We made a face. It's kind of entertaining, actually. He's got a little hat on the side of his head. That's funny. We don't want to drag on too long. I feel like I've babbled long enough. Day 71. I gotta say, this is probably the most compact base I've ever built, despite the fact that we have a bridge running across the river. But I'm happy with this. The base is complete. It's got enough power. It's got water. It's got food. I think this playthrough is done despite the fact that we don't have every tech. But that's fine. You don't necessarily need it in every playthrough. Last season, we did get all the tech. We do it every season. I feel like this is pretty done. The only thing I would have wanted to put up would have been the elevator right there, all the way up into our house. But we don't have that tech, and honestly, I don't feel like grinding 1,000 coins to get it. And that actually ties into what I'm talking about. Some of the choices that were made have curtailed the ability or desire. I guess it would be desire, because you could grind the sale stuff to get it, but I don't want to. So I would say this is, what do they call that, a swan song? Something is dying, I think. As the sun sets on this particular season, possibly this series, I do want to say that this game is good. I think it could be better. And I think that if you know how to mod for this game, if somebody figures it out or whatever, I think the important parts would be you need to drop the cost down. 2,500 for the mechanical parts, I could understand. 1,500 was more than enough for the water wheel. There's no reason that it should be more than that. Oh, that sun's going up still. Sun's not going down in game. I think that there is some balance tweaks that need to happen before this game can raise its numbers. I think there could be work done on the tutorial, just because not everybody, like myself, has 300 hours in it and understands innately what is needed. And I think that there needs to be more lore added to the world. I think that lore is an inescapable part. Solid world building, more world building, would raise this game, in my opinion, to an easy 8, right? I think it would. And regardless of whether you keep the quests or not, I think keeping the quests would be fine. But at the bare minimum, the developer would need to restore the cost of cement. And here's why. It is the only thing that we can make at any point in the game, mind you, that will make enough coins to justify using it as a sale item. We can't grow tea, we can't grow coffee, and therefore we cannot make tins of tea and coffee, right? Which means that the only other decent moneymaker is a truly limited supply, right? Why did people sell concrete or cement? Because it's the only thing worth selling. Nothing else in the game has even close to the sale ability that cement used to have. Nerfing it into the ground was not the answer. And the one thing that you put in a few patches ago to make selling cement a thing is now unobtainable, because the only thing that you could make and produce to get that tech is now worthless in essence. And nobody wants to make 100 trips to the trader with a fully loaded big red to make a couple hundred coins because cement is now worthless, right? To put it into perspective, I believe that at 25 coins, a raw piece of fish is actually worth a comparable amount, I think. It's actually worth almost double what a pound of cement is. A piece of fish is worth twice what a pound of cement is. I want you to think about that. So why aren't we selling fish? Honestly, because they don't stack. And because they take up the smallest inventory area that you have available. There is literally less than no point to selling fish, because it'll all go bad before you actually get it to the trader. Sorry, not sell it. Sorry. The developer has effectively taken away every means of making real money out of the hands of the player. I don't agree with that. Gamers game. It's a game. Nobody wants to sit here for 300 hours trying to farm up pipes or wires or whatever to try and to make money. No, nobody wants that. Literally, no one asked for that, right? Gamers game. Let them game. But would I recommend it? Yes. If you can handle all the criticisms that I've just given, right? And there's probably other people that have possibly reviewed this game outside of myself, and that's fine. Those are my criteria. It has to be fun, has to not waste your time. The story has to be there. The world building has to be there, right? And there's got to be some ease of access, right? There's got to be something in there that makes you want to play the game. 12 notes doesn't hit that. But I think that's going to do it for me here at Shadow Gaming for this episode and for this series. If you're liking the game, or if you're liking the channel, drop me a like. It's harder than it needed to be. Struggle Bus is real. But drop me a sub. Throw me a comment. It's all good. I appreciate every bit of engagement that I get. So, take one last look around our Spartan little house here. One of these days I'll build a well-decorated house. Today will not be that day. But drop a sub, drop a comment. Sometime later this week, I will be dropping, hopefully, another video that will be previewing the game that we're going to be playing next. And that one, I think, will be on stream. We're going to be moving over to a stream format because, frankly, it gets me more engagement. I can talk more with you guys. So, stick around for that. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you can think of that we missed in this game, or if you have any thoughts on progression of the game or how you would rate it. But until then, y'all take care. Don't let the Vambies bite, and stay heads up for the stuff that's coming from the channel. Alright? You take it easy. Take care.